You open a bag of rice. You reach in to scoop out a cup for dinner, and there it is, a tiny beetle crawling across the top. You look closer. There are more, dozens of them. And worse, you realize the rice doesn't just have a few bugs. It's infested. Every single grain might have weevil eggs on it. That rice you bought last week at the store? It's ruined. And you had no idea until right now. This happens to people all the time. Grocery stores sell rice that already has weevil eggs in it, and there's nothing on the label warning you. I'm Dale Porter, and I'm going to show you exactly how to kill every single weevil in that rice right now, keep them from ever coming back, and do it for less than $1. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button. It's free and it helps me make more videos like this one. And drop a comment at the end. I want to know if you've ever opened a bag of rice and found these things crawling around. Let me start with the problem, so you understand exactly what you're dealing with. Rice weevils, also called Pseudophilus oryzae, are one of the most common pantry pests in the United States and around the world. They are small, dark beetles, usually about 1/8 of an inch long. You can tell them apart from other beetles because they have a long, distinctive snout. That snout is how the female bores into a grain of rice to lay her egg. She drills a tiny hole, deposits a single egg inside, and seals it behind her with a secretion. That egg hatches inside the grain. The larva eats the rice from the inside out, turning the grain into a hollow shell. By the time you see the adult beetle crawling on top of your rice, the infestation has been quietly growing for weeks or even months. One female weevil can lay up to 400 eggs in her lifetime. So if you see one weevil, you almost certainly have hundreds more inside that bag, still developing inside the grains. The adult beetles you see are just the tip of the iceberg. Here's the part grocery stores absolutely do not want you to know. They sell rice and grains that are already infested. The processing and packaging happens so fast that weevil eggs slip through quality control undetected. And once those eggs are in your pantry, they hatch when the conditions are right. Warm temperature, moderate humidity, and available grain. The adults mate, reproduce, and lay more eggs. Unless you interrupt the cycle, they will keep breeding until every grain of rice you own is inedible or reduced to dust. This is not a reflection of how you store your food. This is a reflection of the supply chain and the fact that industrial grain processing cannot guarantee a sterile product. The weevil problem is built into the system, and they make money every time you throw away your rice and go buy more. Now the question is, what do most people do when they find weevils in their rice? They open the bag, see the bugs, feel disgusted, and toss the entire bag in the trash. Every single time, that is what happens. And I understand that reaction completely. Nobody wants to eat rice full of insects. Nobody wants to look at that and think about what's crawling around inside. It's a visceral rejection. But throwing it away is exactly what the system wants you to do. Because then you go back to the store, buy another bag, and the same thing happens again in 3 months. The grocery stores and the food industry have zero incentive to solve this problem for you. In fact, they benefit from it enormously. Every time you throw away a bag of rice because of weevils, you buy another one. That's repeat business. And if people knew how easy and cheap it is to kill weevils and prevent them permanently, they would never throw away another bag. The industry does not want that. So let me show you the $1 trick that solves this completely, right now, in your own kitchen. The method I'm about to show you has been used in Asia for centuries. I want to be clear about that because this is not something I invented. I'm not a scientist in a lab. I'm a farmer who learned this from people who have been storing grain properly for generations. I'm talking about Japan, China, Korea, Vietnam, Thailand, places where rice is the primary staple and people have been storing it for thousands of years. They did not have refrigerators. They did not have chemical pesticides in little shaker bottles at the hardware store. They had ingenuity and observation. They watched what worked and what didn't, and they passed that knowledge down. And what they discovered through trial and error over centuries is that weevils cannot survive extreme cold, extreme heat, or complete lack of oxygen. We are going to use all three, and the entire cost of this method is less than $1. Most of you already have everything you need in your kitchen right now. Step 1. Take the infested bag of rice and put it in your freezer. Yes, your freezer. Don't transfer it to a container yet. Don't open it. Just put the whole unopened bag or a sealed portion of it directly into the freezer. Leave it there for a minimum of 48 hours. The temperature in a standard home freezer is between 0 and -10 degrees Fahrenheit. That is cold enough to kill weevil eggs, larvae, pupa, and adult beetles. Nothing survives. I want to be precise here because I've gotten questions about this before. Some people will tell you to freeze it for 24 hours. I've tested this myself multiple times over the years with bags from the same batch of rice. 24 hours is enough to kill the adult beetles on the surface, but sometimes the eggs tucked deep inside a large grain of rice survive. They are protected by the grain itself. 48 hours guarantees a complete kill all the way through. If you have a deep freezer that runs even colder, -20 degrees or below, 4 hours might do it. but for a standard kitchen freezer, 48 hours is the safe, proven number. After 48 hours, take the bag out of the freezer. Do not open it yet. Let it come to room temperature naturally. This is important, and a lot of people skip this step and then wonder why their rice got damp. If you open the bag while it's still cold from the freezer, moisture from the warm kitchen air will condense on the cold rice grains and create dampness inside the bag. That dampness can lead to mold. So just let the bag sit on your counter for an hour or two until it's no longer cold to the touch. When it feels like room temperature, it's ready to open. Now here is step 2, and this is where the dollar comes in. You will need either bay leaves or black peppercorns. Bay leaves, the dried ones you find in the spice aisle, usually less than $1 for a whole small container. Black peppercorns, same thing. A small jar costs less than $1 and will last you months. Either one works. I prefer bay leaves because they have a stronger, longer lasting effect, and they don't affect the taste of the rice at all. The reason these work is not folklore or superstition, it's chemistry. Weevils hate the smell of certain essential oils found in bay leaves and black pepper. Bay leaves contain eucalyptol, also called cineol, a compound that weevils find actively toxic. They will avoid rice that is stored near bay leaves. They cannot detect the grain through the smell, and they cannot reproduce in an environment that is saturated with that scent. This has been documented by agricultural researchers for decades. Here is exactly what you do. Get an airtight container. A mason jar works perfectly, or any food-grade plastic container with a locking sealing lid. You want one that actually seals, not one of those lazy clip lids that lets air in around the edges. The seal is everything. Pour your rice from the freezer into the container. For every 2 cups of rice, add 2 dried bay leaves. That's the ratio, and I have tested it enough to be confident in it. 2 bay leaves per 2 cups of grain. If you are using black peppercorns instead, add about 10 to 12 whole peppercorns per 2 cups of rice. Then seal the container tightly. The bay leaves sit inside the rice. You don't need to bury them, just drop them in. The smell will permeate the grain over the next day or two. Weevils will not lay eggs in that rice. They will not even crawl near it. Place the sealed container somewhere cool and dark. Your pantry shelf, a cabinet, a closet, whatever you have. The bay leaves will stay effective for about 3 to 4 months. After that, swap them out for fresh ones. Take out the old leaves, drop in 2 new ones, reseal, done. Now let me explain step 3, because this is the part most people skip and then wonder why weevils come back 6 months later. The problem is not just the rice you just treated. The problem is that weevils were living in your pantry. They crawl out of the bag, they hide in the cracks and crevices of your pantry shelves, they wedge themselves into the corners where 2 shelves meet. They lay eggs in dust and crumbs that accumulate in those hidden spaces. If you only treat the rice and do not clean your pantry, you will get weevils again. I can say that with absolute certainty because I've had it happen to me. I treated the rice and forgot to clean the shelf. 6 months later, there they were. So after you freeze the rice and before you transfer it to the airtight container, clean your pantry shelf. Take everything off the shelf, every single item. Wipe it down with a solution of white vinegar and water. Equal parts, nothing fancy. Half a cup of each mixed in a bowl works fine. The vinegar kills weevil eggs and larvae that might be hiding in dust. It also dissolves pheromone trails that weevils leave behind on surfaces to attract other weevils. A female weevil leaves a chemical trail that tells other weevils where to find food. If you don't remove that trail, they will find their way back to your pantry, even if the rice itself is protected. So scrub the shelves thoroughly, get into the corners, let them dry completely, and then put your newly treated rice back in a sealed container with fresh bay leaves. This breaks the cycle completely and permanently. Let me address the question I get every single time I post something like this. Can you still eat rice that had weevils in it if you froze it? Yes, absolutely yes, without question. After 48 hours in the freezer at standard freezer temperature, every weevil, egg, larva, pupa, and adult beetle in that rice is dead. There is no health hazard from eating rice with dead weevils in it. Weevils are not venomous. They are not parasitic. They are not carrying human diseases. They are insects. The FDA actually has published guidelines on allowable levels of insect fragments in grain products, and rice that has been properly frozen and stored has 0 live insects and is far, far below any threshold that would concern a regulator. If you have ever eaten flour, you have almost certainly eaten insect fragments without knowing it. It's a documented fact of industrial grain processing. The only reason to throw away properly frozen and stored rice is personal disgust. I respect that. I am not here to force anyone to eat anything they don't want to eat. But from a pure food safety standpoint, that rice is completely fine. Cook it exactly like you normally would. The weevils are dead. They do not change the nutritional content. They do not affect the taste in any way I have ever been able to detect. Honestly, most people who have been eating rice their whole lives have eaten weevils without ever knowing it, because the eggs are microscopic and the cooked insect has no flavor whatsoever. Some people worry that freezing rice will somehow damage it, change its texture, make it cook differently. I've tested this dozens of times over the years with different types of rice: long grain, short grain, jasmine, basmati, even brown rice. Freezing rice for 48 hours and then thawing it does not affect how it cooks. The grains still come out fluffy. The moisture content is unchanged because the rice was sealed. You might have a tiny bit of condensation inside the container when you open it after thawing, especially if you didn't let it come to full room temperature. But all you have to do is spread the rice out on a plate or a baking sheet for 5 minutes, and it will be completely dry and ready to cook. No difference whatsoever in the final product compared to rice that was never frozen. I've served it to family and friends without telling them, and nobody has ever noticed. Let me tell you why the grocery store will never tell you about this. First, because they profit every single time you throw away infested rice and buy more. The math is simple. If every American household threw away 1 bag of rice a year due to weevils, that is tens of millions of bags purchased again. That is hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue for the rice industry. They do not want that revenue to disappear. Second, because the food industry has spent decades promoting chemical solutions. You can go to any grocery store or hardware store right now and buy a pesticide shaker labeled specifically for pantry pests. It contains permethrin or pyrethrin, chemicals that you are literally sprinkling on the same shelf where you keep your food. I'm saying there is no reason to use them when a bay leaf works better and costs less and is completely non-toxic. Third, grocery stores know that weevils in rice are a fact of life in the industrial grain supply chain. They cannot eliminate them without expensive processing that would raise the price of rice. So they do nothing. They hope you don't notice. Or they hope you blame yourself for bad storage instead of questioning why the product arrived at your house already infested. That is the dirty secret of the grain industry, and nobody in that industry wants you to know it. Weevils in rice are a symptom of a food system that has deliberately disconnected you from knowledge your great-grandparents had. My Nana Ruth stored rice in mason jars with bay leaves on her pantry shelf. She had a bay laurel tree in her backyard. It was a small one, barely 5 feet tall, but it produced enough leaves for her kitchen and her pantry every single year. She never had weevils. She never threw away a bag of rice. She never needed to buy a single chemical product from the store for her pantry. She just knew, because someone taught her when she was a girl on her grandfather's farm, and because that knowledge had been passed down through generations of people who couldn't afford to waste food, that bay leaves keep grain pests away. That's it. That's the whole secret. And somewhere along the way, the food industry spent billions of dollars making us forget that, replacing it with expensive chemical products and a constant cycle of buying, wasting, and buying again. They turned a free solution into a recurring expense. They made us dependent on their products for a problem they created. Here is the broader picture I want you to understand. This method works for more than just rice. It works for flour, all-purpose, whole wheat, almond flour. It works for oats, quick oats, steel-cut oats, everything. It works for quinoa, for cornmeal, for semolina, for barley, for any whole grain or grain product you store in your pantry. Bay leaves repel a wide range of pantry pests, including weevils, Indian meal moths, sawtooth grain beetles, and most common stored product insects. If you have a pantry with multiple types of grain in it, put bay leaves in every single container. It is cheap insurance that costs almost nothing and protects everything. And if you are wondering about the economics, one small container of dried bay leaves costs about 80 cents and contains roughly 40 leaves. You use 2 per 2 cups of grain. That single container protects 20 different containers of grain simultaneously. You are spending less than a nickel per container of protected grain. Compare that to the cost of throwing away a 2-pound bag of rice every few months because it went buggy. A family that goes through 1 bag of rice a month and loses half of them due to weevils is losing $30 to $40 a year just on ruined rice. That is not counting the flour, the oats, the cornmeal that also got tossed. This method costs about $5 a year to maintain for an entire pantry full of grain. That is real money, that is real savings, and that is exactly why the industry doesn't want you to know about it. So here's what I want you to do. Go to your kitchen right now, check every bag of grain you have open. Rice, flour, oats, quinoa, whatever. Look inside. If you see even one weevil, if you see even one small beetle, freeze that bag tonight. Tomorrow morning or tonight after work, buy a small container of bay leaves at the store. Clean your pantry shelf with vinegar and water. Transfer everything into sealed containers with bay leaves. Replace the bay leaves every few months. And from this day forward, you are done with weevils. Completely done. This problem is solved for you permanently, and the cost is negligible. If you found this useful, subscribe. Hit the button, it's free, and it really does help this channel grow. I make new videos every week with practical kitchen tricks, pantry solutions, and old techniques that the modern food industry has tried to make you forget. And leave me a comment. I really want to know. Have you ever opened a bag of rice and found weevils in it? What did you do when you found them? Did you throw it away? Did you know about bay leaves before this video? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one and I reply to as many as I can. And if you know someone who keeps finding bugs in their rice or flour, send them this video. They will thank you for it. They will save money and never have to throw away another bag. And subscribe for more videos like this every single week.